At the opulent Grand Hotel, where luxury hides dark secrets, a brutal murder shatters the calm. A dagger in the night, a silk scarf, a cryptic note, clues that point to everyone and no one. Enter Hercule Poirot, the master detective, unraveling a web of lies, betrayal, and a past that refuses to stay buried. From a glamorous lady's hidden shame to a guilt-ridden doctor's silence, every guest conceals a motive. In just days, Poirot's little grey cells will expose the killer. But will justice come too late? Welcome to Death at the Grand Hotel, where no secret escapes the truth. Chapter 1. Arrival at the Grand. The Grand Hotel stood majestically atop the rugged cliffs of Devon, its white stone facade glowing like a pearl against the amber hues of the autumn sunset. The sea below whispered secrets, its waves lapping rhythmically against the rocks, while gulls wheeled overhead, their cries sharp in the crisp air. Hercule Poirot, his black patent leather shoes gleaming, stepped from the taxi with the precision of a man who valued order above all else. His moustache, meticulously waxed, quivered slightly as he inhaled the salty breeze, his sharp green eyes scanning the hotel's elegant exterior. Behind him, Captain Hastings fumbled with their valises, his good-natured face flushed from the journey. "Mon ami," Poirot said, adjusting his Homburg hat. "Observe this place. It is magnifique, yes, but beneath its grandeur there is always the potential for the unexpected. The human soul, it finds such settings irresistible for its dramas." Hastings, ever the optimist, chuckled. "Oh, come now, Poirot. We're here for a rest, not one of your mysteries. A week of sea air and fine dining, nothing more." Poirot's lips curved in a faint, knowing smile. "We shall see, Hastings. The little grey cells, they do not take holidays." The hotel's entrance was a study in opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, and the scent of polished wood mingled with the faint perfume of hothouse flowers. The lobby hummed with the quiet murmur of well-heeled guests. Poirot's gaze darted from one to another, cataloguing details with the precision of a watchmaker. There was Lady Evelyn Carrington, a vision in emerald silk, her diamond necklace catching every eye as she laughed with a group of admirers. Mr. Harold Baxter, a broad-shouldered industrialist with a scowl etched into his weathered face, stood by the fireplace, muttering to a waiter. Miss Clara Vale, a mousy governess in a drab grey dress, hovered near the edge of the room, her eyes downcast but alert. Dr. Simon Lang, a thin man with a nervous tic, adjusted his spectacles as he read a medical journal in a corner. At the reception desk, Mr. Percival Reed, the hotel manager, exuded practiced charm, though Poirot noted the fleeting tension in his smile as he glanced at a sealed envelope tucked beneath a ledger. "Welcome, Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," Reed said, his voice smooth as velvet. "The Grand is honoured to have you. Your suite overlooks the sea, a perfect view." "Merci, Monsieur Reed," Poirot replied, his tone polite but probing. "The envelope there, it is of importance perhaps." Reed's hand twitched, but he recovered swiftly. "Oh, merely hotel correspondence. Nothing to trouble our guests." He handed over their keys with a flourish, directing a porter to their luggage. As they ascended in the gilded lift, Hastings whispered, "You're already suspicious, aren't you? It's just a letter, Poirot." "A letter, Hastings, can be a window to the soul, or a weapon," Poirot murmured, his eyes gleaming. Their suite was a haven of luxury. Velvet drapes framed wide windows, and a fire crackled in the hearth. Poirot, however, wasted no time admiring the decor. He paced the room, his cane tapping lightly, already sifting through the impressions of the lobby. The guests, Hastings, they are a tableau vivant. Lady Evelyn, so poised, yet her eyes, they are watchful. Mr. Baxter, he carries the air of a man who makes enemies. And Miss Vale, so timid, Yet her hands, they clutch her bag too tightly. Hastings sank into an armchair. "You're imagining things, old chap. They're just people on holiday." Poirot shook his head. "Non, mon ami. People on holiday, they relax. These people, they perform." That evening, the dining room was a spectacle of elegance. Crystal glasses clinked, and the aroma of lobster bisque and roasted pheasant filled the air. Poirot, resplendent in evening dress, observed the room over his wine-glass. Lady Evelyn held court at a central table, her laughter bright but brittle. Baxter, seated alone, glowered at his plate, ignoring the waiter's attempts at conversation. Miss Vale, at a corner table, seemed to shrink into herself, her fork trembling slightly. Dr. Lang, dining with a colleague, kept glancing toward the terrace doors, his fingers drumming on the tablecloth. "Poirot," Hastings said, slicing his pheasant. "You're staring. People will notice." "Let them notice, Hastings. The truth, it reveals itself in such moments." As dessert was served, crème brûlée with a perfect caramel crust, a piercing scream shattered the room's refined hum. Heads turned, glasses paused mid-air. Lady Evelyn stood, her face drained of colour, one gloved hand pointing toward the terrace. "There!" she gasped. "He's dead!" Poirot was on his feet in an instant, his small frame moving with surprising speed. Hastings followed, heart pounding. On the terrace, illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns, Mr. Harold Baxter slumped in a wicker chair, his head lolled back, eyes fixed on the starlit sky. A dagger, its handle intricately carved, protruded from his chest, a dark stain spreading across his white shirt front. The sea's murmur seemed to mock the silence that followed. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, his voice steady despite the horror. "The holiday, Hastings. It is over." Chapter 2. The scene of the crime. The terrace of the Grand Hotel, bathed in the silver glow of moonlight, was a stage set for tragedy. The sea's restless murmur blended with the distant clink of glasses from the dining room. But here, in this open-air alcove, death held court. Mr. Harold Baxter's body slumped in the wicker chair, his lifeless eyes fixed on the horizon, where stars glimmered like indifferent witnesses. The ornate dagger in his chest gleamed cruelly, its blade buried deep, a stark contrast to the elegance of the surroundings. Hercule Poirot stood motionless, his small, immaculate figure a silhouette against the lantern light, his green eyes darting over the scene with the precision of a jeweller inspecting a flawed gem. Captain Hastings at his side felt a chill that had little to do with the autumn breeze. "Good heavens, Poirot," Hastings whispered, his voice tight. "Murder here in such a place. It's unthinkable." Poirot's moustache twitched, a faint smile playing beneath it. "Unthinkable, mon ami? Non, it is all too thinkable. The Grand Hotel, with its luxury and its secrets, is precisely the place for such a crime. Where there is wealth, there is envy. Where there is beauty, there is betrayal. We must now use the little grey cells to uncover the truth." He stepped closer to the body, his cane tapping lightly on the stone floor, and bent to examine Baxter without touching him. The industrialist's face, even in death, retained its sternness, the lines of his jaw set as if in defiance. His dinner jacket was pristine, save for the spreading crimson stain, and his right hand clutched the arm of the chair, fingers rigid. Poirot noted the stopped watch on Baxter's wrist, 9:17 p.m. The crystal cracked as if struck in a struggle. Beside the chair, a glass of brandy lay shattered on the tiles, its amber contents pooling like spilled sunlight. A silk scarf, pale blue and delicately embroidered with the initials CV, lay crumpled near the terrace's edge, caught against a potted fern. Hastings, his stomach turning, pointed to the scarf. "That must belong to Miss Vale, Poirot, the governess. Could she have—" Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. "Patience, Hastings. The scarf. It is a clue, yes. But clues are not always what they seem. We must observe all before we conclude. He knelt, his gloved fingers hovering over the scarf without touching it, noting its fine weave and the faint scent of lavender clinging to it. His gaze swept the terrace, the low balustrade overlooking the cliffs, the scattered wicker furniture, the lanterns casting soft shadows. Footprints were absent on the polished stone, and the only other item of note was a crumpled piece of paper protruding from Baxter's pocket. Poirot, with the dexterity of a surgeon, extracted it using a handkerchief. The note, written in a hurried scrawl, read, "You will pay for your sins." The ink was fresh, the paper cheap, unlike the hotel's embossed stationery. "Sinister, is it not?" Poirot murmured, folding the note carefully. "But also theatrical. This murderer, they wish to tell a story." Before Hastings could respond, heavy footsteps announced the arrival of Inspector Fowler, a burly man with a ruddy face and a moustache that rivaled Poirot's in size, if not in elegance. His local constables trailed behind, their boots scuffing the terrace. Fowler surveyed the scene with a scowl, his eyes narrowing as they landed on Poirot. "Who's this then?" Fowler demanded, addressing Hastings. "Some foreign gent poking his nose where it doesn't belong." Hastings bristled. "This is Hercule Poirot, the finest detective in Europe. He solved cases that would baffle—" "Enough, Hastings," Poirot interjected smoothly, his voice calm but firm. "Inspector Fowler, I am at your service. I was present when the body was discovered, and I offer my observations, if you permit." Fowler grunted, clearly unimpressed. "I've got this under control, Mr. Poirot. Look straight forward to me. That scarf belongs to the governess, Clara Vale. She's a nobody, probably desperate for cash, stabbed Baxter in a fit of rage, left her scarf behind. Case closed." Poirot's eyes twinkled with amusement, though his expression remained grave. "Simplicity, Inspector, is the refuge of the lazy mind. The scarf, it is too obvious, like a signpost pointing to Miss Vale. A true murderer, they do not leave such gifts unless they wish to mislead. Permit me to examine further, and we shall see." Fowler hesitated, then shrugged. "Suit yourself, but don't touch anything. My men will handle the evidence." Poirot inclined his head, a gesture of deference that masked his determination. He circled the body, noting the angle of the dagger, driven straight, with force, suggesting a strong hand, male or female. The wound was clean, no hesitation marks, indicating a deliberate act. Baxter's left hand, curiously, was unmarked, though a faint smudge of ink stained his cuff. Poirot's gaze lingered on the shattered glass, the brandy's pungent aroma mingling with the sea air. He stepped to the balustrade, peering over the cliff's edge to the rocks below, where waves crashed with relentless fury. No footprints led to the edge, no signs of a struggle beyond the body itself. "Poirot," Hastings said, hovering anxiously. "What do you make of it? Was Baxter lured out here?" "Perhaps," Poirot replied, his voice low. "Or perhaps he came to meet someone. The brandy glass, it is singular. Was he drinking alone, or did his companion leave no trace?" He turned his attention to the terrace doors, heavy glass panels that opened from the dining room. They were slightly ajar, the latch unfastened, suggesting easy access. Inside, the dining room was now a chaos of whispers and stares, guests craning to see the commotion. Lady Evelyn Carrington, her composure restored, stood near the doors, her diamond necklace glittering as she spoke to a waiter. Miss Vale had vanished, likely retreating in distress. Dr. Simon Lang lingered at a table, his face pale, his fingers twisting a napkin. Mr. Percival Reed, the manager, moved among the guests, his smile strained as he urged calm. Poirot re-entered the dining room, Hastings at his heels. "We must speak with those who were near Hastings," Poirot said. "The moment of death, it is precise, 9 to 17 p.m. Who was absent from this room when Lady Evelyn screamed? Hastings frowned, trying to recall. It's hard to say, Poirot. Everyone was eating, talking. I didn't notice anyone leave. Précisément, Poirot said. That is why we question. The absence, it is as telling as the presence. He approached Lady Evelyn first, her elegance undimmed by the evening's horror. Madame, Poirot said, bowing slightly. You discovered the body. Tell me, what drew you to the terrace? Lady Evelyn's eyes, sharp and blue, met his. I needed air, she said, her voice steady. The dining room was stifling. I stepped out, and there he was, Mr. Baxter, dead. I screamed before I could stop myself. And you saw no one else? Poirot pressed. No movement, no sound. She hesitated, her gloved fingers brushing her necklace. No one. It was quiet. Only the sea. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. He moved to Dr. Lang, who started as Poirot addressed him. Doctor, you were dining here. Did you step onto the terrace this evening? Lang's spectacles slipped down his nose, and he pushed them up with a trembling hand. No, I was here with Dr. Weston, discussing a medical journal. I didn't leave my seat. Poirot's gaze lingered on Lang's nervous hands, then shifted to the manager, Mr. Reed, who approached with a forced smile. Monsieur Reed, Poirot said, the terrace doors, they are often left open. Reed nodded. In fine weather, yes. Guests enjoy the view. Anyone could have slipped out unnoticed. Indeed, Poirot murmured, or slipped in. He returned to the terrace where Fowler's men were photographing the scene. Poirot's eyes fell on a small detail he had missed. A cigarette butt, half hidden beneath a chair, its tip smudged with red lipstick. He pointed it out to Hastings. Curieux, non? Not many women here smoke so openly. And this lipstick, it is a clue perhaps. Hastings glanced at Lady Evelyn, who was known to favour bold makeup. Could it be hers? Perhaps, Poirot said. But we do not assume. We verify. He questioned a waiter, a young man named Thomas, who had served Baxter's table. Monsieur Baxter, he was alone? Poirot asked. Thomas nodded. Yes, sir. He ordered brandy after dinner and took it to the terrace. He seemed angry, kept muttering about someone owing him. Owning him what? Poirot asked, his tone sharp. Thomas shrugged. Didn't say, sir. Just grumbled, then went outside. Poirot dismissed the waiter, his mind racing. The note, the scarf, the cigarette, the brandy, all pieces of a puzzle, each deliberate, yet misleading. He turned to Hastings. This murder, it is not impulsive. It is planned, staged like a play. The scarf points to Miss Vale. The note suggests vengeance, but these are too neat, too perfect. Fowler, overhearing, scoffed. You're making this complicated, Poirot. The governess had a grudge. Maybe Baxter insulted her, or she needed money. She stabbed him, dropped her scarf, and fled. Poirot's smile was polite but cold. Inspector, if Miss Vale is the killer, why leave her scarf? Why write a note so vague? A true criminal, they cover their tracks, not decorate them. Fowler muttered something about foreigners and turned to his men. Poirot, undeterred, knelt by the body once more, examining Baxter's hands. The ink smudge on his cuff intrigued him. Hastings, this ink, it is not from the note. It is blue, not black. Perhaps Baxter wrote something himself before he died. He searched the body carefully, finding nothing more but noting the absence of Baxter's wallet, though his gold cufflinks and watch remained. A robbery, Hastings suggested. Non, Poirot said. A robber takes all, not selectively. This is something else. As the constables prepared to move the body, Poirot took one last look at the terrace. The lanterns flickered, casting shadows that seemed to dance with secrets. He felt the weight of unseen eyes, as if the hotel itself were watching, guarding the truth. Hastings, he said softly, this crime, it is personal. Someone hated Baxter, not for his wealth, but for his past. We must learn who he was and who wished him dead. They returned to the dining room, where guests were now dispersing, their faces a mix of fear and curiosity. Poirot's mind churned, cataloguing every detail. Lady Evelyn's hesitation, Lang's nervousness, Reed's guarded smile, the absent Miss Vale, the scarf, the note, the cigarette, all were threads in a tapestry of deception, and Poirot knew that only by unravelling each would he find the killer. "Come, Hastings," he said, his voice resolute. "The night is young, and the truth, it waits for us." Chapter 3. The Guests Under Scrutiny. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Grand Hotel's salon, casting golden streaks across the polished mahogany furniture and the intricate Persian rug. The air was heavy with the scent of coffee and the undercurrent of unease that follows a violent death. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in a charcoal suit, his moustache a perfect crescent, stood at the centre of the room, his presence commanding despite his diminutive stature. Captain Hastings, seated on a velvet-upholstered chair, fidgeted with his tie, his honest face betraying his discomfort at the gathering before them. The guests, summoned at Poirot's request, sat in a tense semicircle. Lady Evelyn Carrington, her elegance marred by the faintest shadow under her eyes. Miss Clara Vale, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Dr. Simon Lang, his spectacles reflecting the morning light. And Mr. Percival Reed, the hotel manager, whose polished demeanour seemed strained. Inspector Fowler leaned against the fireplace, arms crossed, his scepticism palpable. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and measured, "a tragedy has occurred in this place of beauty. Mr. Harold Baxter is dead, struck down by a hand both bold and cunning. I, Hercule Poirot, have been permitted by Inspector Fowler to ask questions, to seek the truth. I ask for your cooperation, for the truth, it hides among you." Fowler snorted softly, but Poirot ignored him, his green eyes scanning each face. "Let us begin with the evening of the crime. You were all in the dining room, yes? Yet someone slipped away, perhaps unnoticed, to the terrace. Who among you left your seat before Lady Evelyn's scream?" Lady Evelyn raised her chin, her diamond earrings catching the light. "I've already told you, Monsieur Poirot. I stepped onto the terrace for air and found poor Mr. Baxter. I saw no one else." Her voice was smooth, but her fingers toyed with the fringe of her shawl, a nervous tick Poirot noted. He turned to Miss Vale, whose pale cheeks flushed under his gaze. "Mademoiselle Vale, your scarf was found near the body. How do you explain this?" Clara's voice trembled, barely audible. I lost it 2 days ago, sir. I swear it. I wore it on a walk along the cliffs, and when I returned to my room it was gone. I thought perhaps a maid had found it, but—" She trailed off, her eyes darting to the floor. Poirot's expression softened, but his questions did not. "And last night, mademoiselle, where were you at 9:17, when Mr. Baxter met his end?" "In the dining room," she said quickly. "I was eating alone, near the window. I didn't leave my table." Poirot nodded, his gaze shifting to Dr. Lang, who adjusted his spectacles nervously. "Doctor, you were with a colleague, you said. Did you remain at your table throughout the evening?" Lang cleared his throat, his voice thin. "Yes, with Dr. Weston. We discussed a case study over dinner. I had no reason to go to the terrace." His fingers twitched, betraying his unease, and Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you, Monsieur Reed?" Poirot turned to the manager, who stood near a silver coffee urn, his smile fixed. "As manager, you move freely, observing all. Did you see anyone approach the terrace doors?" Reed hesitated, his eyes flicking to Lady Evelyn before answering. "The dining room was busy, Monsieur Poirot. Guests were coming and going, waiters too. I recall Mr. Baxter leaving with his brandy, looking agitated. He'd had words with someone earlier, though I didn't hear the details." "Words with whom?" Poirot pressed, his tone sharp. "I couldn't say," Reed replied, smoothing his tie. "A man's voice, low and angry, From the corridor near my office. It was around 8 o'clock. Poirot paced slowly, his cane a soft metronome on the rug. Interesting. A quarrel, a lost scarf, a body on the terrace. Each of you have a story. But stories, they must align with facts. He stopped, facing Lady Evelyn again. Madame, you mentioned Mr. Baxter's rudeness at dinner. What did he say to provoke such a remark? Lady Evelyn's lips tightened. He was insufferable, making crude comments about my necklace, implying it was not my own, as if I were some common thief. Her indignation seemed genuine, but Poirot noted the quick glance she cast at Reed. And you, Doctor, Poirot continued, turning to Lang. You seemed uneasy when Miss Vale spoke of her scarf. Why? Lang started, his face paling. I was merely shocked, that's all. To think someone used Clara's scarf to frame her, perhaps. His words stumbled, and Poirot's moustache twitched with interest. Hastings, unable to stay silent, leaned forward. Poirot, they all seem to have alibis, but someone's lying. That scarf didn't walk to the terrace on its own. Précisément, Hastings, Poirot said, his voice low. The scarf, it is a deliberate clue, placed to mislead. But by whom? And why Miss Vale? He turned to Clara, his tone gentle. Mademoiselle, did you know Mr. Baxter before this holiday? Clara shook her head vehemently. No, sir. I'd never met him. I'm only here because my employer, Mrs. Langley, is a guest. I keep to myself. Poirot nodded, filing away her words. He addressed the group once more. Each of you have given me a piece of the puzzle, but the picture, it is not yet clear. I ask you to remain vigilant, to report anything unusual. The murderer, they are among us, and they will not escape the justice of Hercule Poirot. As the guests dispersed, Fowler approached, his face red with irritation. You're stirring up trouble, Poirot. I've got half a mind to arrest the governess and be done with it. That scarf's evidence enough. Poirot's smile was polite but unyielding. Inspector, to arrest without understanding is to build a house on sand. Permit me to continue, and I promise you, the truth will emerge. Fowler muttered and stormed off, leaving Poirot and Hastings alone in the salon. Hastings sighed, rubbing his temples. Poirot, this is a mess. They all seem guilty. Or none of them. Lady Evelyn's too proud, Lang's too nervous, Reed's too smooth, and poor Miss Vale looks terrified. We, Hastings, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. But fear, pride, nerves, they are masks. We must look beneath. The scarf, the note, the cigarette with lipstick. These are not accidents. They are a performance, and we must find the director. He led Hastings to a window overlooking the cliffs where the sea churned below. Consider, mon ami, the timing. Baxter dies at 9:17, yet the dining room was full. Someone slipped away, unseen, or perhaps they were seen but dismissed. A waiter, a guest, a shadow. We must reconstruct the evening, moment by moment. Hastings frowned. But how? No one admits to leaving, and the terrace doors were open to all. Exactement, Poirot said, tapping his cane. That is why we question not just the guests, but the staff, the surroundings, the very air of this hotel. Come, we shall visit the terrace again, and then, perhaps, the rooms of our suspects. They returned to the terrace, now cordoned off by Fowler's men, though the body had been removed. The morning light revealed details missed in the moonlight. A faint scuff mark on the balustrade, as if someone had leaned heavily against it. A single rose petal, crushed near the chair where Baxter had died. Poirot picked up the petal, twirling it between his fingers. Curieux, he murmured. The roses are in the garden, not here. Did someone bring it, or did it cling to a shoe? He examined the scuff mark, noting its position facing the sea. Someone stood here, Hastings, perhaps watching Baxter, or waiting. The mark is fresh, made by a polished shoe, not a servant's boot. Hastings peered over the cliff, his stomach lurching. You don't think they threw something over, do you? The dagger's still here, But maybe evidence? Poirot shook his head. No, the dagger is the centerpiece, meant to be seen. But this mark, this petal, they tell a story of presence, of intent. We must learn who stood here. They moved to the dining room, where a maid, Ellen, was clearing tables. Poirot approached her with a disarming smile. Mademoiselle Ellen, you served last night, yes? Tell me, did you see anyone leave for the terrace before the scream? Ellen, a stout girl with wary eyes, nodded slowly. Mr. Baxter went out with his brandy, sir, about 10 minutes before. And I think I saw Dr. Lang step out earlier, just for a moment. He said he needed a cigarette. Poirot's eyes sharpened. A cigarette, you say? And did he return quickly? Yes, sir, before Mr. Baxter went out. I'm sure of it. Merci, mademoiselle, Poirot said, dismissing her gently. To Hastings, he added. So, Dr. Lang was on the terrace, despite his claim. A small lie, perhaps. But why? They proceeded to the corridor near Reed's office, where the manager had overheard Baxter's argument. The narrow hallway, lined with portraits of past hotel owners, was quiet, its carpet muffling their steps. Poirot paused, his head tilted. Listen, Hastings, the acoustics here, they carry sound. Reed heard a man's voice, but whose? We must find this other party. As they returned to the salon, Poirot's mind churned. The rose petal, the scuff mark, Lang's lie, Reed's vague report of an argument, all were threads in a tapestry of deception. Hastings, he said, this crime, it is not merely about Baxter's death. It is about his life, who he was, what he did to earn such hatred. We must dig into his past and into the lives of those around him. Hastings nodded, though his expression was dubious. But where do we start, Poirot? We've got clues, but they point everywhere and nowhere. Poirot's smile was serene, his confidence unshaken. We start with the people, mon ami. Their words, their glances, their secrets. The truth, it is like a pearl in an oyster. It requires patience to uncover, but it is there, waiting for Hercule Poirot. Chapter 4. The Hidden Letter. The Grand Hotel's opulent corridors, lined with gilt-framed mirrors and crimson wallpaper, seemed to pulse with secrets as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings made their way to Mr. Harold Baxter's room. The morning had deepened into noon, the sun casting long shadows through the tall windows. Yet the air within the hotel felt heavy, as if the walls themselves mourned the violence that had shattered their elegance. Poirot's steps were measured, his cane a soft counterpoint to the muted hum of the hotel's daily routine. Hastings, trailing behind, clutched his hat, his brow furrowed with the weight of the unfolding mystery. Poirot, Hastings ventured, do you really think we'll find something in Baxter's room? The police have surely gone over it already. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with quiet certainty. Mon ami, the police, they look for the obvious. The weapon, the blood, the stolen goods. But Hercule Poirot, he seeks the subtle, the hidden. A man's room, it is a reflection of his soul. We shall find what they have missed. They reached room 214, a corner suite overlooking the cliffs. Inspector Fowler had grudgingly provided the key, though not without a muttered warning to keep things tidy. The door creaked open, revealing a chamber of understated luxury, a four-poster bed with crisp linens, a walnut desk cluttered with papers, and a window framing the restless sea. The scent of cigar smoke lingered, mingling with the faint tang of leather from a locked suitcase in the corner. Poirot's gaze swept the room, cataloguing every detail with the precision of a cartographer. Observe, Hastings, he said, pointing to the desk. The papers are in disarray, yet the rest of the room is orderly. This suggests a man interrupted, perhaps in haste. He approached the desk, his gloved fingers sifting through receipts, a train timetable, and a half-finished letter addressed to a solicitor in London. The letter, written in Baxter's bold hand, mentioned a delicate matter, requiring discretion, but was maddeningly vague. Poirot's attention shifted to the suitcase, its brass lock gleaming defiantly. This, Hastings, it is not the luggage of a casual traveller. It is locked for a reason. With a flourish, Poirot produced a hairpin from his system, his pocket, his movements swift and precise. Within moments the lock yielded, and the suitcase opened to reveal neatly folded clothes, a leather-bound notebook, and a small photograph in a silver frame. Poirot lifted the photograph, his moustache twitching with interest. It depicted a young woman with soft features and a shy smile, her dark hair pinned elegantly. The inscription read, "To Harold, with love, Margaret." Hastings leaned over Poirot's shoulder, his eyes widening. "Good Lord, Poirot, that's Margaret Vale, Clara's sister. I saw her picture in the papers years ago, after that dreadful factory accident." "Précisément," Poirot murmured, his voice low. "Margaret Vale, who perished in a factory owned by Baxter. A tragedy, and perhaps a motive, but for whom?" He examined the notebook, its pages filled with terse business notes, figures, contracts, and names, none immediately revealing. One entry, dated a week prior, mentioned a meeting with C.V. in London, with the word settlement underlined. Poirot's eyes narrowed. C.V., Clara Vale perhaps, or another. This requires investigation. Hastings frowned. Clara said she didn't know Baxter. Could she have lied? Perhaps, Poirot said, closing the suitcase. Or perhaps the initials are a coincidence. We must not assume, Hastings. Assumptions, they are the fog that obscures the truth. They left the room, Poirot tucking the photograph into his pocket with care. As they descended to the hotel's lounge for luncheon, Poirot's mind churned. The photograph linked Baxter to Margaret Vale, but the nature of their connection was unclear. A lover, a friend, a victim. And what of Clara, who claimed no acquaintance with the man? The lounge was a hive of subdued chatter, the guests' appetites undimmed by the previous night's horror. Lady Evelyn Carrington sat at a central table, her laughter bright but forced as she conversed with a silver-haired gentleman. Miss Clara Vale was absent, her employer, Mrs. Langley, dining alone with a stern expression. Dr. Simon Lang sat near a window, his fork pausing mid-air as he stared at his plate, lost in thought. Mr. Percival Reed moved among the tables, his smile a mask of professionalism. Poirot and Hastings took a table near the fireplace, where Poirot's sharp eyes missed nothing. He noted Dr. Lang's agitation, the way his hand shook as he sipped his water. "Hastings," Poirot said softly, "observe the good doctor. He is troubled, more than a man should be at a stranger's death." Hastings nodded, lowering his voice. He was on the terrace, Poirot, despite his claim, and Ellen said he smoked a cigarette, perhaps the one with the lipstick. Poirot's lips curved slightly. "A curious detail, non? The lipstick. It suggests a woman, yet Lang admits to smoking. We must clarify this." As they ate, a delicate sole meunière, Poirot's attention was drawn to a sudden movement. Dr. Lang rose abruptly, his napkin falling to the floor, and hurried toward the lobby. Poirot, with a glance at Hastings, followed discreetly, his steps silent on the thick carpet. In the lobby, Lang approached a waste bin near the reception desk, his movements furtive. He dropped a small glass vial into it and turned away quickly. Poirot, swift as a shadow, retrieved the vial with his handkerchief, holding it to the light. A faint residue of white powder clung to its interior. "Mon Dieu," he whispered. "A sedative, perhaps. But for whom?" Hastings, catching up, gasped. "Poison, Poirot. Is he the killer?" "Non, Hastings," Poirot said, pocketing the vial. "This is not poison, but a clue to fear, or guilt. Dr. Lang. He hides something, and we must learn what." They returned to the lounge, where Poirot's gaze fell on Lady Evelyn, who was now alone, her fingers tracing the rim of her wineglass. He approached her, his manner courteous but probing. "Madame, a word if I may. Mr. Baxter, he commented on your necklace last night. Did he suggest it was acquired improperly?" Lady Evelyn's eyes flashed, but her voice remained cool. "He was crude, Monsieur Poirot, implying I couldn't afford such a piece. The man had no manners." "And you felt threatened by him?" Poirot asked, his tone gentle. "Threatened?" She laughed sharply. "Hardly. I am Lady Evelyn Carrington. I do not fear men like Baxter." Poirot bowed, retreating with a smile. To Hastings he murmured, "She protests too much, no? Her pride, it is a shield, but what does it protect?" As they left the lounge, Poirot's mind was a whirl of connections. Margaret Vale's photograph, Clara's scarf, Lang's vial, Reed's overheard argument, the lipstick-stained cigarette. Each was a thread, but the pattern remained elusive. "Hastings," he said, pausing in the corridor. "This murder, it is rooted in the past. Baxter's death is a reckoning, but for what sin? We must learn more of Margaret Vale and her connection to this place." Hastings nodded, though his expression was troubled. "It's a tangled web, Poirot. Where do we go next?" "To the shadows, mon ami," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "We follow the secrets that hide in the light of day." Chapter 5. The Nighttime Intrigue. The Grand Hotel, under the cloak of night, seemed to whisper its secrets through the creak of its polished floors and the soft sigh of the sea beyond its windows. The moon hung low, casting a silvery sheen over the cliffs, while the lanterns along the corridors flickered like cautious sentinels. Hercule Poirot, his eyes sharp despite the late hour, moved through the hotel with the stealth of a cat, his cane silent against the thick carpets. Captain Hastings followed, his heart thudding with a mix of excitement and unease, his earlier hopes of a restful holiday now a distant memory. "Poirot," Hastings whispered, glancing over his shoulder. "Is this really necessary? Skulking about like thieves in the night?" Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Mon ami, the night, it is when secrets stir. The guilty, they do not sleep soundly. We patrol to observe, to catch the truth unawares." Their plan was simple yet bold: to watch the corridors and common areas, to note any movement that might betray a hidden agenda. The events of the day, the photograph of Margaret Vale, Dr. Lang's discarded vial, the scuff mark on the terrace, had set Poirot's grey cells alight with suspicion. He believed the murderer, emboldened by the chaos of Baxter's death, might act again, whether to cover their tracks or to pursue another end. They began near the lobby, where the reception desk stood deserted, its brass bell glinting faintly. The sealed envelope Poirot had noticed upon their arrival was gone, a detail that did not escape him. "Curieux," he murmured, his fingers brushing the desk's edge. "Monsieur Reed, he guards his correspondence closely." They moved to the corridor leading to the manager's office, a narrow passage lined with portraits whose painted eyes seemed to follow their steps. The air was still, save for the distant crash of waves. Poirot paused, his head tilted, listening. A faint sound, soft footsteps, deliberate and hurried, came from around the corner. He gestured for Hastings to remain silent and edged forward, his small frame blending into the shadows. Peering around the bend, Poirot saw a figure slip into Mr. Reed's office. Lady Evelyn Carrington, her emerald evening gown unmistakable even in the dim light. Her movements were swift, purposeful, as if she feared discovery. Poirot, with Hastings trailing, crept closer, positioning himself at the office door, which stood slightly ajar. Through the keyhole, he glimpsed Lady Evelyn handing Reed a thick wad of banknotes, her voice low but urgent. "Keep it quiet, Percival," she whispered. "No one must know." Reed's reply was muffled, but his tone was placating, almost servile. "Of course, my lady. You have my word." Hastings, crouching beside Poirot, could barely contain himself. "Blackmail, Poirot," he hissed. Is she paying him off? Poirot raised a finger to his lips, his eyes never leaving the scene. Lady Evelyn turned, her face pale but composed, and slipped out of the office, passing so close to their hiding spot that Poirot caught the scent of her jasmine perfume. She vanished down the corridor, her heels clicking softly. Reed remained inside, counting the notes with a practiced hand before tucking them into a locked drawer. Poirot and Hastings retreated to the lobby, where the silence was broken only by the ticking of a grandfather clock. "What does it mean, Poirot?" Hastings asked, his voice low. "Is Lady Evelyn involved in the murder?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, his tone measured. "Or perhaps her payment is for another secret. Blackmail, as you say, is possible, but so is a transaction of guilt or fear. We must learn what she hides." They resumed their patrol, moving toward the guest wing. The corridor was quiet, but as they passed Dr. Lang's room, Poirot's sharp ears caught a faint rustle. He paused, motioning for Hastings to listen. A soft creak followed, as if someone were moving cautiously inside. Poirot knocked lightly, his manner polite but firm. "Dr. Lang, it is Hercule Poirot. May I have a word?" The door opened slowly, revealing Dr. Lang in a dressing gown, his spectacles askew and his face flushed. "Monsieur Poirot, it's late. What do you want?" His voice was sharp, betraying nerves. "Merely to confirm your whereabouts, Doctor," Poirot said smoothly. "You were in your room all evening, yes?" Lang nodded too quickly. Yes, writing letters. I've had no cause to wander." Poirot's eyes flicked to the desk behind Lang, where a pen lay uncapped beside a blank sheet of paper. "Letters, you say? Yet your desk, it is untouched. Curious, non?" Lang's hands trembled, and he adjusted his spectacles. I was about to start. Couldn't sleep, you see." "Bien sûr," Poirot said, his smile disarming. "Bonne nuit, Doctor." As the door closed, he turned to Hastings. "Another lie, Hastings. Dr. Lang, he is a man on edge." Their patrol continued, but the hotel seemed to settle into an uneasy calm. As they neared Miss Vale's room, Poirot noticed a faint light beneath her door. He knocked softly, and after a moment, Clara Vale appeared, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed, as if she had been crying. She wore a simple nightdress, her hair loose. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said gently, "forgive the intrusion. I wish to ensure your safety. You are distressed, yes?" Clara clutched the doorframe, her voice barely a whisper. "It's the scarf, Monsieur Poirot. Everyone thinks I killed him, but I didn't. I swear it." Poirot studied her, his gaze kind but piercing. "Tell me, mademoiselle, did you see anyone on the terrace last night, before the scream? Anyone at all?" She hesitated, her fingers twisting a lock of hair. I saw Dr. Lang earlier, pacing near the terrace doors. He looked troubled, almost haunted. But that was before dinner, not when Mr. Baxter died." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing her words. "Merci, mademoiselle. Rest now and fear not. The truth, it will protect you." As they left her room, Hastings whispered. "Haunted," she said. "That's the second time Lang's been placed near the terrace. He's hiding something, Poirot." "Oui, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low. "But what? Guilt, fear, or merely a secret unrelated to murder? We must press him, but with care." They returned to their suite as the clock struck 1, the hotel now wrapped in silence. Poirot sat by the fire, his eyes distant, his fingers steepled. "This night, Hastings, it has shown us much. Lady Evelyn's payment, Lang's lie, Clara's observation. They are pieces of a puzzle, but the shape, it is still unclear." Hastings sank into an armchair, rubbing his eyes. "It's a devil of a case, Poirot. Everyone's got a secret, but which one leads to murder?" Poirot's smile was serene, his confidence unshaken. "All secrets, mon ami. They connect in time. The little grey cells, they will weave them together. Tomorrow, we dig deeper, into Baxter's past, into Lang's fears, into Lady Evelyn's motives. The truth, it is close, but it plays hide and seek. He rose, adjusting his cufflinks, and gazed out at the moonlit sea. Sleep now, Hastings. The night has given us its clues, and the day, it will bring us answers. Chapter 6. The alibi unravels. The Grand Hotel's garden, a meticulously tended oasis of rose beds and gravel paths, shimmered under the midday sun, its tranquility a stark contrast to the turmoil within the hotel's walls. Hercule Poirot, his patent leather shoes gleaming despite the dust of the paths, strolled with a purpose, his cane swinging lightly. Captain Hastings followed, his face flushed from the warmth and the weight of the investigation, which seemed to grow more tangled with each passing hour. The scent of roses mingled with the salt air, but Poirot's mind was far from the beauty around him, focused instead on the threads of deceit that wove through the hotel's guests. "Poirot," Hastings said, mopping his brow, "we've got Clara's scarf, Lang's lie about the terrace, Lady Evelyn's payment to Reed. How does it all fit? It's like trying to solve a jigsaw with half the pieces missing." Poirot's green eyes glinted with quiet amusement. "Mon ami, the pieces, they are all there, but scattered. The task of Hercule Poirot is to arrange them, to see the picture they form. Today, we press Dr. Lang for his lie about the terrace. It is a crack in the facade of this mystery. They had chosen the garden for their confrontation, a neutral ground where Lang might feel less cornered. Poirot had sent a note, politely requesting the doctor's presence, and now, as they rounded a hedge, they saw him waiting by a stone bench, his thin frame hunched, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. His spectacles caught the sunlight, masking his eyes, but his nervous posture betrayed him. "Dr. Lang," Poirot greeted, his voice smooth as velvet. "Merci for joining us. The garden, it is a place for clarity, no? And clarity we need for your account of last night. It troubles me." Lang's cigarette trembled slightly, and he stubbed it out against the bench. "I've told you, Monsieur Poirot. I was in the dining room with Dr. Weston. I didn't go near the terrace when Baxter was killed." Poirot tilted his head, his moustache twitching. "Yet the maid, Ellen, she saw you there earlier, smoking, perhaps leaving the cigarette with the curious lipstick stain. And Mademoiselle Vale, she too, places you near the terrace doors, looking haunted. Why, Doctor, do you deny what others have seen?" Lang's face paled, and he adjusted his spectacles with a shaking hand. I may have stepped out briefly, for air, but it was before dinner, not at 9:17. I swear it." Poirot stepped closer, his gaze piercing. "And the vial, Doctor, the sedative I found in the waste bin, for whom was it intended? To calm a patient or to silence a witness?" Lang's knees seemed to buckle, and he sank onto the bench, his head in his hands. "It's not what you think," he whispered, his voice breaking. "The sedative was for Clara, Miss Vale. She was distraught, talking about her sister Margaret. I gave her a mild dose to help her sleep, that's all. I threw the vial away because I didn't want anyone to think I was involved in anything sinister." Poirot's eyes narrowed, but his tone remained gentle. "Margaret Vale, the sister who died in Baxter's factory. You knew her, did you not?" Lang nodded, his voice barely audible. "Yes, I was the factory's physician years ago. I certified the machinery safe, but it wasn't. A beam collapsed, killing Margaret and others. I've carried that guilt ever since. Clara, she doesn't know I was involved. I couldn't bear to tell her." Hastings, unable to stay silent, interjected. "Good heavens, Lang, that's a motive. Did you kill Baxter to atone for your mistake?" "No!" Lang's voice rose, desperate. "I hated Baxter for his negligence, but I didn't kill him. I was in my room at 9:17, I swear." Poirot's gaze softened, but his questions did not relent. "Then why, Doctor, were you seen near the terrace at 9:15, as a maid has confirmed? You were not in your room, but close to the scene of the crime." Lang's face crumpled, and he buried his head in his hands. I was there, yes. I went to smoke to clear my head. I saw someone arguing with Baxter, but I didn't stay. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Poirot pressed, his voice like a scalpel. Who did you see? Lang's voice dropped to a whisper. It was Lady Evelyn. She was on the terrace, her voice sharp, accusing Baxter of something. I couldn't hear the words, but she was furious. I left before anything happened. I swear I didn't see the murder. Poirot exchanged a glance with Hastings, who looked stunned. Lady Evelyn, Hastings murmured. First the payment to Reed, now this. She's in deep, Poirot. Perhaps, Poirot said, his tone measured. But we must verify, not assume. He turned back to Lang. Doctor, you have been less than truthful, but I believe you did not kill. You will tell Inspector Fowler what you saw, yes? Lang nodded, his shoulders sagging. Yes, I'll tell him. I wanted to protect Clara. Poirot dismissed him with a nod, and as Lang shuffled away, Hastings shook his head. He's a wreck, Poirot. Do you believe him? His fear, it is genuine, Poirot replied, pacing the gravel path. But his story, it shifts the light onto Lady Evelyn. We must confront her, but with care. She is a woman of pride, and pride, it makes one dangerous. They returned to the hotel, the gardens calm giving way to the hushed tension of the lobby. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together Lang's confession with the other clues. The scarf, the note, the cigarette, the photograph of Margaret Vale. Lady Evelyn's presence on the terrace, if true, was a critical thread. But why would she argue with Baxter? And what of her payment to Reed? In the lounge, they found Lady Evelyn sipping tea, her composure as polished as ever. Poirot approached, his manner courteous but firm. Madame, a moment. It has been said that you were seen on the terrace with Mr. Baxter, moments before his death. What did you discuss? Lady Evelyn's teacup paused mid-air, her eyes narrowing. Who told you such nonsense? I was in the dining room, as I said. I only stepped out when I found him dead. Poirot's smile was polite but unyielding. Yet a witness places you there in heated conversation. And your payment to Monsieur Reed last night, it suggests a secret. What is it, madame, that you hide? Her face flushed, but she recovered quickly, setting her cup down with a clink. You overstep, Monsieur Poirot. I paid Reed for a private matter, nothing to do with Baxter. As for the terrace, your witness is mistaken. I am not a murderer. Poirot bowed, retreating, but his eyes gleamed with purpose. To Hastings he murmured, She denies, but her denial, it is too swift, too practiced. We must watch her closely. As they left the lounge, Poirot paused by a window, gazing at the sea. Hastings, this case, it is like the tide. Each wave brings new clues, but also covers others. Lang's guilt, Lady Evelyn's secrets, Clara's scarf. They are connected, but how? We must find the link, the moment where past and present collide. Hastings sighed, his optimism waning. It's a labyrinth, Poirot. Every lead seems to twist back on itself. Poirot said, his voice steady. But every labyrinth has a centre, and we are close, mon ami. Tomorrow we dig into Baxter's past, and we speak again with Mademoiselle Vale. The truth, it is near, and Hercule Poirot will not let it slip away. Chapter 7. The Truth Revealed. The Grand Hotel salon, with its gilded mirrors and velvet drapes, was a stage set for revelation on this crisp autumn afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting intricate patterns on the polished floor, but the air was thick with anticipation, as if the room itself held its breath. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his small frame radiating authority, his moustache impeccably waxed, his green eyes sharp as they surveyed the assembled guests. Captain Hastings sat to one side, his notebook open, his face a mixture of awe and apprehension. The suspects, Lady Evelyn Carrington, Dr. Simon Lang, Miss Clara Vale, and Mr. Percival Reed, occupied chairs arranged in a semicircle, their expressions ranging from defiance to dread. Inspector Fowler leaned against the fireplace, his arms crossed, his skepticism barely concealed. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, "we gather to unmask a murderer. Mr. Harold Baxter was struck down on the terrace of this hotel. A crime both bold and calculated. The clues, the scarf, the note, the cigarette, the photograph, they are like stars in a constellation, guiding us to the truth. And now, with the aid of my little grey cells, that truth shall be revealed." Fowler snorted, but Poirot's gaze silenced him. "Let us begin with the scene," Poirot continued, pacing slowly. "A dagger, driven with precision, a scarf, embroidered with CV, left conveniently near the body. A note, proclaiming, 'You will pay for your sins.' A cigarette, stained with lipstick. These are not accidents, but a performance, designed to mislead." He turned to Clara Vale, whose pale face seemed to shrink under his scrutiny. "Mademoiselle Vale, your scarf was found on the terrace, pointing to you as the killer. Yet you insist it was lost. I believe you. The scarf was placed there, a deliberate act to cast suspicion." Clara's eyes widened, her voice a whisper. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I didn't do it." Poirot nodded, then faced Dr. Lang, whose hands fidgeted with his spectacles. "Doctor, you lied about your whereabouts, admitting only under pressure that you were near the terrace. You saw an argument, yet you fled, fearing implication. Your guilt over Margaret Vale's death in Baxter's factory weighs heavily, but it is not the guilt of murder." Lang's shoulders sagged, relief mingling with shame. "I couldn't face it," he murmured, "but I didn't kill him." Poirot's gaze shifted to Mr. Reed, whose polished smile had faded. "Monsieur Reed, you overheard an argument before the murder, yet you withheld details. You accepted payment from Lady Evelyn, a transaction cloaked in secrecy. What did you hide?" Reed's jaw tightened, but he remained silent, his eyes darting to Lady Evelyn. Poirot's voice grew sharper. "And you, Madame Carrington, you were seen on the terrace, arguing with Baxter moments before his death. You paid Monsieur Reed to keep silent about a matter you claim is unrelated. Yet your denials, they ring hollow." Lady Evelyn's composure cracked, her gloved hands clenching. "This is outrageous. I am no murderer." Poirot raised a hand, his tone commanding. "Let us reconstruct the truth. Mr. Baxter, a man of wealth and enemies, came to this hotel with secrets. The photograph of Margaret Vale, inscribed with affection, suggests a personal connection. The notebook, mentioning CV and a settlement, points to a past obligation. The cigarette with lipstick, it implicates a woman, but not Miss Vale, who does not smoke. The note, with its theatrical vengeance, is a distraction meant to obscure motive." He paced, his cane tapping rhythmically. "Dr. Lang, you were on the terrace earlier, consumed by guilt over Margaret Vale's death. You saw Lady Evelyn with Baxter, but you fled, fearing your own secrets would surface. Monsieur Reed, you knew of Baxter's argument, perhaps because you eavesdropped, hoping to profit. But the key, it lies with Lady Evelyn." He turned to her, his eyes piercing. "Madame, your necklace, it is a stolen piece, is it not? Baxter recognized it, perhaps from a scandal in London. He threatened to expose you, to ruin your reputation. You argued with him on the terrace, your anger rising. You saw an opportunity, Clara's lost scarf, a chance to shift blame. You took the dagger, perhaps from Baxter's own collection, and struck him down, staging the scene to mislead." Lady Evelyn sprang to her feet, her face ashen. "This is preposterous. I paid Reed to secure a private suite, nothing more. I was not on the terrace until I found him dead." Poirot's smile was cold. "Yet Dr. Lang saw you, madame, and the cigarette with your shade of lipstick was found near the body. You smoked to steady your nerves, did you not? Before or after the act?" Lang, trembling, spoke up. "It's true. I saw her, arguing with Baxter. Her voice was sharp. She said something about ruining everything. I left before it happened. Lady Evelyn's eyes blazed, but her voice faltered. He was a brute. He knew about the necklace, yes, and threatened to tell the world. I only argued with him. I didn't kill him. Poirot shook his head. The evidence, it speaks otherwise. The scarf, placed to implicate Clara. The note, written in haste to suggest vengeance. Your payment to Reed, to ensure his silence about your presence on the terrace. You planned this, madame, with care, but not enough to escape Hercule Poirot. Fowler, stepping forward, looked stunned. You're saying she did it? Lady Evelyn? Oui, Inspector, Poirot said. She killed Baxter to protect her secret, using the chaos of the hotel to obscure her crime. The necklace, it was her undoing. Lady Evelyn's composure shattered, and she sank back into her chair, tears streaming. He'd have destroyed me, she sobbed. My reputation, my life. He knew the necklace was stolen and demanded I pay him to stay silent. I couldn't let him. Fowler signalled to his constables, who moved to escort Lady Evelyn. You're under arrest, my lady, he said, his tone gruff but tinged with respect. As she was led away, the room fell silent, the weight of truth settling over the guests. Poirot turned to Hastings, his expression serene. The little grey cells, mon ami, they see through the fog of lies. Justice, it is served. Hastings shook his head, marvelling. You've done it again, Poirot. But how did you know it was her, not Lang or Reed? The clues, Hastings, Poirot said, tapping his temple. They pointed to a woman of pride, of desperation. The lipstick, the payment, the argument, they all led to Lady Evelyn. The rest, they were shadows, not the substance. As the guests dispersed, Clara Vale approached, her eyes brimming with gratitude. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I thought I'd be blamed. Poirot bowed. Mademoiselle the innocent. They have nothing to fear from Hercule Poirot. Chapter 8. Departure. The Grand Hotel stood resolute against the Devon cliffs, its white facade gleaming under the late morning sun, as if untouched by the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. The sea below sparkled with a restless energy, its waves a reminder of the relentless passage of time. Hercule Poirot, his suit immaculate and his moustache perfectly symmetrical, stood in the lobby, his small suitcase at his side. Captain Hastings, ever his faithful companion, adjusted his hat, his face a mixture of relief and melancholy as they prepared to leave. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of salt and the promise of a journey's end. Poirot, Hastings said, glancing at the bustling lobby. It's hard to believe this place was the scene of such a crime. It looks so serene now. Poirot's green eyes twinkled with quiet satisfaction. Mon ami, appearances, they are always deceptive. The Grand Hotel, it is a stage, and we have played our part in its drama. The curtain has fallen, and justice, it has prevailed. Their taxi waited outside, its engine humming softly. The porter, a young man with a deferential nod, loaded their luggage, while Mr. Percival Reed, the hotel manager, approached with a strained but courteous smile. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, Reed said, bowing slightly. The Grand is grateful for your intervention. I trust your stay, despite its challenges, was not wholly unpleasant. Poirot's smile was polite, but guarded. Monsieur Reed, the hospitality was admirable, but the secrets, they were more revealing. You will take care, I hope, to guard your hotel against such intrigues in the future. Reed's smile faltered, his eyes flickering with the memory of his own complicity in Lady Evelyn's schemes. Of course, Monsieur Poirot, we shall be more vigilant. As they stepped outside, Poirot paused to survey the hotel one last time. The guests moved about their routines, some unaware of the full extent of the drama, others whispering of Lady Evelyn's arrest. Miss Clara Vale, standing near the entrance, caught Poirot's eye. She approached, her grey dress modest, but her expression lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. "Monsieur Poirot," she said softly, her voice steady now, "I cannot thank you enough. I was so afraid, but you saw the truth." Poirot bowed, his manner gentle. "Mademoiselle, the innocent, they shine like stars in the night. Your truth was clear to the little grey cells." Clara smiled faintly, then turned back to the hotel, her steps tentative but hopeful. Hastings watched her go, then turned to Poirot. "Poor girl. She's been through an ordeal, and to think it all tied back to her sister's death." "We, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low. "Margaret Vale's shadow hung over this crime, but it was Lady Evelyn's pride that wielded the dagger. The past, it has a way of demanding its due." They climbed into the taxi, the driver tipping his cap as he closed the door. As the vehicle wound down the cliffside road, the hotel receded into the distance, its grandeur a fading silhouette against the sea. Hastings leaned back, his mind still grappling with the case's intricacies. "Poirot, it's a marvel how you pieced it together. The scarf, the cigarette, the payment to read. I thought Lang was our man for sure." Poirot chuckled softly, adjusting his gloves. "The good doctor, he was haunted by guilt, but not by murder. The clues, Hastings, they were like breadcrumbs leading to Lady Evelyn. Her necklace, her argument with Baxter, her lipstick on the cigarette, they told a story of desperation, not vengeance." Hastings shook his head, a wry smile forming. "A holiday ruined by murder, Poirot. I should have known better than to expect a quiet week with you." "Non, non, mon ami," Poirot said, his tone playful yet firm. "A holiday enriched by the triumph of order over chaos. The human heart, it is complex, but with method we unravel its mysteries. This case, it was a challenge worthy of Hercule Poirot." The taxi rolled on, the sea giving way to rolling hills as they approached the train station. Poirot gazed out the window, his mind already turning to the next adventure, though his expression remained serene. "The world, Hastings, it is full of puzzles, and we are fortunate to solve them." As the train's whistle sounded in the distance, signalling their departure from Devon, Hastings felt a familiar stir of admiration for his friend. The Grand Hotel, with its secrets and shadows, was behind them, but Poirot's brilliance, like the sea itself, was boundless and enduring.